Hello everyone, this is Terry with Futures.io, and as always I would like to thank you for joining us today. Now it's my pleasure to welcome back Brett Barrett from NinjaTrader for today's webinar, NinjaTrader 8 Order Flow Tool Suite and Volume Profile Indicator. Now if you have a question, please feel free to type them into the questions box throughout the webinar and we'll do our best to answer them at the end of the event. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do us a favor and give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the webinar. And as always, please feel free to share, comment, and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us a lot. For trading news, events, and information, follow us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter using @Futures.io. And now, without further delay, I will hand it over to Brett, and you'll get the pop-up to share your screen again.
Okay. Okay, guys, everybody just see my screen?
Yep, we see the PowerPoint admin.
Okay, cool. All right, well, always glad to be in the Futures.io webinar room. Terry, thanks for having us back. My name is Brett Barrett. I'm on the product management team here at NinjaTrader. And today's webinar, we're going to go through some of the Order Flow Plus tool set. In the last recent release of NinjaTrader, version 15, we had completed the tool set, at least from our initial feature set, and added the volume profile and volume profile drawing tools to the product. That's easily one of the most advanced indicators that we've shipped with the product, and the Order Flow Plus package together makes a complete software package for analyzing order flow, the auction process, and we'll talk a little bit about that. We'll also go through some of the setups you can do with the new volume profile indicator. The volume profile indicator is easily, as I mentioned, a very complex indicator with a lot of indicator settings and a lot of approaches you can do to play with the settings to get something that works for your setup. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to run through some of the new tool sets that we're releasing in the next version of NinjaTrader, which will be coming out here shortly. So before we get too far into the webinar, I do need to get through a quick disclaimer. Quickly read over this, bear with me please. The risk of loss in trading can be substantial, regardless whether it is in securities, futures, contracts, or foreign exchange. You should therefore carefully consider whether such trading is suitable for you in light of your circumstances and financial resources. You may sustain a total loss of the funds that you deposit with your broker to establish or maintain a position in the commodity, future, or foreign exchange markets, and you may incur losses beyond these amounts. You can learn more about these risks by inquiring with your broker directly. And finally, this presentation is brought to you by NinjaTrader LLC, a software development company which owns and supports the NinjaTrader trading platform. NinjaTrader LLC is an affiliated company to NinjaTrader Brokerage. This presentation is informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation to buy or sell any security, future, or foreign exchange contract. Any questions that are not related to NinjaTrader trading platform should be sent to your brokerage firm directly. Okay, with that out of the way, guys. And new in the latest release, this is the release that we just had about a month or so ago. Time flies, and we added, as I mentioned, the new Order Flow Plus Volume Profile Indicator and Order Flow Plus Volume Profile Drawing Tool. I'm actually going to walk you through, I'm going to spend quite a bit of time walking everybody through these volume profile tools and what you can do, and just kind of hopefully you will get some ideas on how to use the drawing tool indicators and drawing tools. If you're already using them today, maybe I unlock some thoughts or processes on how to get more out of them if you're already using them today. We also release cryptocurrency support with Coinbase. We actually have a new window coming, which is cryptocurrency related, which I'll be showing here in just a moment. It's called the depth window. Pretty common with cryptocurrency to show volume on the exchange in this way. So we've got something new and exciting coming there. We also introduced some new drawing tools. We had a polygon drawing tool and a time cycles drawing tool, which I can preview if anybody is interested. We added some new default indicators into the product, and we're going to continue to add a few more in the version coming up. And we added some NinjaScript strategy type stuff, a max strength optimization metric, which is actually kind of interesting. We might have a chance to talk about it here later. And along with a few miscellaneous and quality of life enhancements and feedback. Today we're going to be focusing on Order Flow Plus. were specifically about the volume profile indicator and volume profile drawing tool. Last time I was here on Futures IO, I had a chance to talk about volumetric bars, market depth map, large trade detector, cumulative delta, and VWAP. Those are all things that we had released initially as part of the Order Flow Plus package. Volume profile indicator and volume profile drawing tool were not originally available when we did the initial release. They are now available. And Order Flow Plus, for those of you that may not know what Order Flow Plus, or maybe you're new to NinjaTrader in general, that's included with the purchase of a NinjaTrader lifetime license, and all existing license holders will immediately receive this benefit. So Order Flow Plus. This webinar is really geared towards somebody that may be already a NinjaTrader user, or maybe you're looking at NinjaTrader, so I'm not going to be going through a whole lot of NinjaTrader basics. I'm assuming you have those down. What we are going to be doing is getting into some of these Order Flow Plus volume profile tool sets and what you can do with it, and answering any questions. That we'll have a Q&A question session at the end. So if anybody has questions, I believe you can type those into the room, and we will be running back around to those at the end of the webinar. So please enter those in as I go. If you have any questions, I'd love to get them answered. So everybody should be seeing the NinjaTrader workspace that I've put together for the webinar session today. Today I'm using an advanced build of NinjaTrader. This is our next version of NinjaTrader. Right now we're on release 15. What will be coming out in the coming week will be release 16. We've got a lot of exciting new things coming out in release 16. Those of you that maybe are quite astute at looking at the screen may see some visual improvements. We've made some minor changes to icons and things like that, just to kind of update the look and feel of the product. And in the bottom left here, you can kind of immediately see this depth chart window, which we've built specifically for cryptocurrency trading. We use, when you connect to Coinbase, for anybody that doesn't already know, we added a Coinbase connection in release 15. It's available now, where all you need to do is go into the connections dialog, click on configure, go into Coinbase here, and just simply add it. There's no username or password needed, and you can connect right up and get streaming quotes from Coinbase. So I've got down here Bitcoin USD, and we've got the new depth chart window, which will be launching with R16 coming up soon. I'll come back around here, but just to kind of comment, since you're going to see it in my workspace here, wanted to immediately just mention that's what it is, and that's something new coming in R16. This is the depth chart window in the bottom left-hand corner here. And in the top right-hand corner, I've got a ES chart 5-minute here. And I've got a bunch of tabs here. I'm going to be showing you various ways to set up the volume profile indicator. And that's exactly what I have on this chart, is an order flow volume profile indicator. And when you have Order Flow Plus package, so you have a lifetime license, you're able to right-click on the chart, go to indicators, and you're able to scroll down to the order flow set of tools. And we can see they're all here, including volume profile. And when you add that to the chart, double click it, you're presented with various settings. And I'm going to increase my screen here so everybody can see the settings available. I'll loosely run through them, but I'm going to be revisiting some of these settings. Like I said, there's a lot here on the volume profile tool, a lot of configurability here. And so most importantly, the most important settings are going to be here in the setup section. So the setup section is how you define what kind of profile you want to build. We've got all sorts of, first you're going to need to pick what type of profile you'd like, which we offer 3 modes: volume, tick, and price. Volume being a traditional count up of the volume, and we're plotting that per price. Tick being every time a trade occurs, we're going at a certain price, we're going to count that up. So it's volume agnostic, just a way to normalize it without volume. And then we've got price mode, which is kind of a unique style chart, and I'll cover that here in a moment. It has to do with plotting where time and price trades. Display mode This is picking how you would like the profile to display, which I'll show you here, the various options you have available. We've got various modes, standard, bicell, delta, heat, outline, and time color. And I'll go through each one briefly here in just a moment. But to complete the whole kind of, the three major settings here are: what kind of profile do you want? How do you want to display the profile? And finally, how much data do you want each profile to contain? What's the time period? And this is the profile period. We've got several options: sessions, bars, composite, weeks, and months. Sessions is exactly that. Every single session of the instrument will have a profile plotted. So you'll have a single profile for the start time of the session to the end time of the session. Bars is interesting because you can set it up, you can count, let's say you're on a 1 minute chart and you want to have a profile that's 1 hour in length. So every 1 hour, you'd like to see a profile. Here, if you're on a 1 minute chart, the bars property you would set to 60, since there's exactly 60 bars in 1 minute. And this, and I'll show you a demo of this here briefly, but that's the idea behind bars, is you're counting the number of bars that you would like a profile to be made of. Composite is a unique one in that when you're building a composite profile, you're actually not building multiple profiles. So let me move this to the side here so you guys can see. If I add a composite profile on here and I say I want to put it on the right here, so I'm going to already have a volume profile on here, and if I click on this volume profile, this is just a standard session profile. So I'm looking at the profile, and I've got for each price and volume, and I guess for those of you that may not be familiar with what a profile is or maybe need some profile basics, a profile is, each one of these blue lines is a relative value based on the max volume seen, which is this yellow or orange line here, which is called the point of control. The point of control simply being the max volume seen during this profile period at this price. So every single time a contract trades at this price, we're going to add that volume, and then we're going to graph it on the chart with a bar. And in this case, you can see the only time that the ES traded on October 10th around this price was right around in this area. I'm kind of circling a set of bars here. And since the point of control is in this area and we have the most volume in this area, you can tell just from the indicator that the most trading had to occur in this range of the chart. And so why that's significant is, if we have, right now we're trading below, and market has been getting a little more volatile recently, been having a few more down days, little volatility returning back to the market, always a good thing. But let's say we were to head back higher. Well, if we are graphing each profile on the chart, so let's imagine, here's current time, and let's imagine it, tomorrow, Friday, everybody's happy again, and we're back up to the 2840 level or so. This point here, you could interpret as a point of resistance, because there's a lot of people that had bought or sold contracts at this price. Maybe there's people that are coming back to break even and are happy to be break even. There's people that are, there's multiple ways you can read what that means. But when you get a point of control, it's possible that it's a point of support or resistance. So you want to plot it on the chart. And we have some more advanced features I'll go into to actually keep that point moving forward in time. It's called the naked point of control. So that's when a point of control is not covered by market action in the past. I'll show you a little bit about that here in a moment. But with the profile, you can kind of see the prices which had the most volume, and the value area is the area in the light blue. The area in the dark blue, has a little less opacity here. This is the area outside the value area. You might be asked, for those of you that know volume profile, you know what value area stands for. Value area being just the range of prices, the high and the low, of which the majority of the volume traded. And the majority being defined, and that's a setting which can be set here in the properties here. There's a value area percentage property here. By default, it's set to 68%. So the range where 68% of the volume occurred is the value area. And that's customizable. 68 is the default. There's a reason why 68 is set as the default. 68 happens to be roughly equivalent to 1 standard deviation of the volume. So that's just something to keep in mind. So a profile being made of a point of control, a max volume that occurred at a price during the profile time, a value area, which is highlighted in blue, showing you the period, the high and low where 68% of the volume of this profile traded, and then the outliers, which is just the remaining volume, which is plotted as well and seen on the chart. And down in the bottom left corner, got some summary statistics. These can be turned off, of course. And this just shows you the total volume and the total range traded for this complete profile. So you can do kind of a profile by profile comparison, looking back, looking forward. You can tell here this day we had a lot more volume than this day without even adding any kind of extra indicators on the chart. It's just all there. So that's the basics of a profile. And what we have is when you're picking a profile period, like I was mentioning, you're going to pick what do you want your start and end time of this profile to be. Right now we've got it set every session. This is my first profile here. So now if I go down and I've added a second profile on the chart, which is pretty common to do, that's not, a lot of times you will want to have multiple profiles on the chart, especially if you're going to be using a composite profile. But let's say I do a composite profile and I set it to, let's say, weeks back, and I've got various options. I can do days back, months back. I can pick a specific start date. I can do the entire chart, or I can do the visible screen range. Visible screen range is kind of interesting. So let me just do weeks back for now, and we'll say 1 week back. So I want a weekly profile on this chart. And one thing I've done here is I've set, there's a profile alignment left and right. And so this is, by default, it's left. So let me just click apply here. And you'll see here I get a large profile here on the left side. And so what I can do is, with the way I like looking at composite profiles, I like putting them on the right. So I'll go ahead and throw this onto the right side here. I'll click OK. And the next thing that I like to do is, there's a little bit of overlap here. And if I drag my chart to the left here, you'll see I can eliminate that overlap. However, up here, there's still this composite profile still taking up a lot of the chart. I may or may not want that. In this case, that's a pretty large profile for my taste. So I'm going to double click here on the profile. And this is where I'm getting into the visual section here, down here. And we've got the profile alignment, right, which is what we've touched. Profile width percentage. This is the percentage of that the profile will take of the chart. Right now it's set to 60. I'm going to drop this down to something like 20. I'm going to click OK. So now this profile is much smaller. And so now if I would like to, I can leave my chart like this. And this is actually a good layout, because now I can see both the weekly point of control and the weekly value area, but I can also in combination see the daily sessions, the session profiles as well. So I get a nice combo of the data. And let's say, and one of the things that I like to do is I like to adjust the right margin. So that way I don't have any overlap. So let's say this profile here is taking up, I'll say, about 200 pixels of screen space. So I'll right click on the chart, go down to properties. I'll go to right side margin, which default is 8. I'll go ahead and throw in 200 for now. I'll just click apply and let's see where that sits us. So my estimate was a little high. It was probably double. Let's go with 100. We'll click OK. And so now, when I kind of recentered the chart, now my chart will stay. And actually, I had my chart back, which is why 200, I was actually probably pretty close to the money. So let me go back to properties, 200. And this way, when I drag my chart left and right, this becomes the new center point. I just can click here. I can reset my chart. So that way, if I look back in time, I want to quickly get back up to speed, I can get back to this layout. Okay, so we've got a composite profile, and these are all standard profiles. So we've got a single blue color, we've got a point of control, we've got a value area. There's also some advanced profile concepts such as value area highs or value area lows. These are things that you just can look at the profile and see. These are ways to interpret the profile. And for example, here's a value area high node here, and here's a value area highs and value area lows nodes, I should say. I use value area high, value area low, value area high being this top blue line, since this is the value area of the whole value area, and then we've got a top line, and then we've got a bottom line here. This is the value area low line. There's a concept of nodes, which we don't really do much by default with the indicator, but it's just a way you as a person would interpret the indicator. Now, we've got multiple ways to display these profiles. Standard is just one way. And again, this gets into the kind of 3 questions you're going to ask when you apply a volume profile on the chart, which I mentioned are these 3 important profiles, which are the profile type, the display mode, and the profile period. And so the display mode being, how do you want it to look? And we've got standard, bicell, delta, heat, outline, and time color. And I've set those up here. I can go ahead and switch between them. I'm going to move on to my next tab here. And so on this tab here, I've got a bicell mode here. Now, if I double click on it, let me just double check and make sure I got that name right. Yeah, correct, display mode bicell. And what we're doing here is we're overlapping the volume occurring on the ask versus the volume occurring on the bid. And we're coloring those accordingly so that you can see the amount of volume occurring on upticks or on asks and the amount of volume occurring on the bid. These colors here are all predefinable. You're going to find them down in the visual section. So again, I'm just double clicking on the volume profile, get to my properties here. And if I scroll down, I've got various colors, various line options and label options. But on the visual here, we've got color for buy, color for sell. So I can go ahead and set those to which colors I would like to display. Now, we've taken this one step further. You may notice that it might be hard to tell exactly, you could get in there and really look and analyze it, but a lot of these bars, it looks like the red is about half the distance of the green, and that's because in a balanced market, which our markets are very balanced, the cases where there's more buying or more selling at one particular price are typically more outlier, and it's typically something that you're on the lookout for. And that's what the delta mode works to solve. So I just went to my next tab here, where I've got a volume profile set to delta mode here. Okay. And on delta mode, what we do is just highlight the difference between the buy volume and the sell volume, and we put a red or a green plot on it. We put in the background the total volume, and here you're going to bring your eye to significant price points where there was a lot more either selling, indicated by the red bar here, or significantly more buying, indicated by green bars. So if I look here, I've got a very large red bar here, okay? And that's likely going to be somewhere in this area here. This just shows you the difference between the two within the profile period. If you wanted to get more granular with this is where the drawing tool comes in handy. And I'll be covering the drawing tool here in just a moment. But it's actually something where, and I'll just go to a blank chart here just to show you, since we're talking about it. But if you wanted to take a more in-depth look or get closer on a specific set of bars, if you're curious where volume occurred, let's say during this one up move here, maybe from this low to this high up here, you want to draw a profile between there. Well, that's what the drawing tool solves. So you'll come up to your drawing tool menu, come down to the order flow volume profile, which is F3. And what I'll do is I'll just click down at this low here, okay? And I'll get this box as I drag to the right that will just auto fit the data. And as I drag up here, you can see now I'm on this bar on the top right here, and I simply just click again. When I do that, I now have a profile which is set up. I can set this up however I'd like. This is driven just by the start and end time that I've defined, and I can draw as many of these as I like on a chart, and I can kind of analyze profiles within profiles. So if I wanted just to look at this down bar section here, I could do that. You know, so there's just a lot of flexibility in the drawing tool to be able to just kind of custom specify where you would like to take a look deeper into where the most volume occurred on a specific leg. So definitely a very interesting feature. So we've got Delta plot mode. So getting back to just our regular old session by session profiles here. I was talking about the various ways that you can show the profile. The last mode I talked about here was the Delta mode. We'll move on to my next tab in the chart here where we've have a heat mode. Heat mode simply being it will have two colors. It'll have a low heat and a high heat color. The high heat being red, high heat equaling the highest volume or points where the volume got close to the highest volume. That being called heat, and then a low heat color and in this case we've got red and kind of a yellow color for the high and low heat. And if I double click on that profile, you can see here display mode, I've got it set to heat mode, and down here we've got a color for high heat red, color for low heat yellow. And if I change those, I can just customize the colors. So if I wanted it to be instead something like I don't know, a spring green for high heat, and for low heat, let's go with teal, dark cyan or something. I have no clue how that's going to look, but I can just click OK. And here we've got an alternate display here. Actually, not too bad. So just some interesting ways you can configure the chart to kind of bring your eye to points that matter the most. And I was talking a little bit about that node concept where you're kind of looking at you know, here we've got an elevated area of volume. Here's really where the true volume is, but yes, we've had an elevated volume of here, so maybe that is a significant point. Okay, the last one we've got as far as ways to plot the profile, this is called a time color option. So if I double click on this profile, I've got it set to time color. We've also got an outline option. I didn't do it here. It's just it just is an outline of the profile in case you don't want to have that much, you know, kind of you want to reduce clutter on the chart as much as possible. You can do that as well. But time color, what that does is there is a section down here. It kind of pulls double duty, which is the times section down here. So let me go ahead and expand this, scroll down, and you can see there's a big laundry list of letters and times, and we're borrowing the letters. So this is for the price mode volume profile, but you can see here that between 7 and they're broken up into 30-minute windows here. So from 7, and these are all dark turquoise. So from 7 to 9 a.m., so that's about a 2-hour window here. All that's going to be dark turquoise, and then it's going to move on to gold, medium sea green, lawn green, red, blue, magenta as the day goes on. And that's what the time color is. So it's just going to color the volume based at what time of the day it occurred. This can be used in this mode and can also be used with the price mode, which I believe is coming up next. This is a price mode profile. So this is actually a change in this third setting here, which is called profile type. So I now am no longer showing you ways to plot a volume profile. I'm actually plotting a price profile right now, which is shows you a different set of data. A point of control of a price profile will not necessarily be the point of control of a volume profile. The two profiles are not necessarily the same. And the reason for that is a price profile is plotted based on, you simply get a letter if it traded any time during the time where the letter is defined, and the letter definitions being found in the time sections here. So if we ever get a trade between 7 a.m. and 7:30 a.m., we're going to get an uppercase A here. So it just shows you for every price if it traded within that time. And so if I close out of this, you'll see I've got a ES 30-minute here where I've got a price profile where I can see each letter. And these profiles, we start on the letter B here, and it goes on through B, D, E, F, and you can kind of see how it builds up. And the trick on these profiles is you're always going to look, if you're going to be a price profile user, I definitely see less and less people using this mode, but it's still an option. But if you're going to use this mode, the trick to this mode is setting your ticks per level. So I've got this set to 22. What you're going to want to do, because if you don't set ticks per level, and if I set this to 1, these letters will be so small you won't even see the letter. You'll just see a block, because you have the option to switch to boxes mode here, which if I switch to this mode, and I've actually done 2 options here, which I should mention. So I've switched to the boxes mode. I clicked apply. It's going through calculating right now. And with the box mode, it'll just display a box of that color. So instead of showing you the letter, it'll just show you the color. So I actually kind of prefer the box mode since it kind of abstracts away the letter and it's a little easier to see. But in the box mode here, if it's too small to render the letters, you're going to default back to box. So you're going to see something like this, and if you see something like this, pump your ticks per level up higher. It's going to depend on what instrument you're on, how far you're going to go, and it's also going to depend on how large of a range there is in the chart, from the high of the chart to the low of the chart. So I've had to pump this up a little bit more because we've had such impactful days over the last few days that the range of the chart is quite large here. So I'll switch this, or I'll just leave it on boxes, that's fine. And so this is called a price profile, and the point of control being the single price of which it's traded the most at throughout the day. So you can see here we've stacked a number of blocks here. And now for a user that's somebody that is using a price profile, this is definitely something where you're going to want to print out, or you got to kind of memorize somehow, some way these colors. Once you use it enough, so you get to a point to where it kind of commits it to memory. And the point of control in the value area is all driven by the number of letters or boxes. So it's no longer driven by volume, but instead driven by how many letters and boxes there are. Okay, so that is price mode charts. Now let's move on here. Let's start to get into some more of the optional stuff. So we've covered some of the basics of the profile. We understand, a little bit about that we can pick and choose our start and end times of our profiles. We can pick, if we want a composite profile, to cover more of a range. We've covered the various ways we can see a profile. Now let's get into some of the various options that are honestly kind of a little bit hidden because there are so many so many options to the profile. And in this mode here, I've got just a standard profile, and I've got what's called, if I double click on it, you'll see, I'll move this properties dialog over here. You'll see extended to the right of this profile here is a yellow line. And if I scroll down here in the line section of the profile, there's an extended naked point of control being the single largest volume again, and extended naked value area. Now the definition of naked being this line, this line from this profile will continue extending into the future until price action comes up and hits it again. So what that means is that, so if you have a number of days back in the chart, you've got a number of profiles, you're going to see a number of lines So it kind of keeps a memory, because the market usually keeps a memory as to what those point of controls or value areas were in the past. So you don't have to mentally look back at the past profiles. You can just kind of look right here at the right edge side of the chart, and you can say, yep, you know, right above 2840, that's a possible heavy zone. Maybe I'm not going long right there. Maybe I'm waiting till it gets above there. Then maybe I'm long. You know, that's a possible support or resistance area that is just kept moving forward into the chart. And I've enabled that. If I double click on volume profile, we've got the line section here. And again, if I expand these out, I've simply just check marked the option to make it visible. So these are off by default. So you just say, hey, I want to have those visible on the chart, and there you go. Next optional lines that you can have. This is the developing point of control and developing value area. So what you see here is you see the standard profile with these yellow and red plots that are kind of following down with market action until it kind of gets down to the end, to the matching the end value area and point of control of this profile. And so what developing simply means is exactly that. It gives you a way, so when you're looking at this complete session profile at the end of the day, you get the value of foresight in that, or I should say hindsight, in that you can look back, and well, you get all the data in your profile is made up when you're looking at this at the end of the day. So if you're looking at a previous day profile, the point of control may not necessarily have been at this price till the end of the day. And that's exactly what the developing point of control shows you, is you can see this yellow line here as it kind of hovers around price, then comes down and comes down. That's the point of control. If I would have had a profile open, let's say right here at this time, so if I grab my horizontal line here, so if I would have had a profile, I apologize, I wanted a vertical line. So if I had my profile and the current bar, if I expand this out here, and the current bar of this profile, let's say we're at this day right here, my point of control would have been at 2884. That's different than what it ultimately ended up at 2843.50, which is, it got there right at about shortly before noon, right after 11 o'clock. So you can look at where the history of the point of control was in the past. And a lot of use cases for that are, is point of control trending down? Is it trending up? You know, those are some things that you could consider when you're looking at a developing point of control or developing value area. Definitely an optional feature, which is very useful. Moving on, next optional feature. Go ahead and double click on this. Expand that same line section here. And we've got the initial point of control, initial value area, and initial balance range. These all start with initial. And if you go ahead and turn these on, so you check mark these to visible, you're not going to see anything. And the reason why you're not going to see anything, because if you scroll up, there's initial balance time, and it says in minutes. So when you set an initial balance being defined as what is the value area or what is the point of control within the first 60, 120, 240 minutes of the day. You define that initial balance time, whether you want it to be just 15 minutes, 30 minutes, just depends on what your timetable is. And then as those lines will be plotted so that you constantly know what that initial balance area was at the beginning of the day. And the initial point of control and initial value area, that's just the point of control and value area at that 120 minutes here as defined. So first 2 hours of the day. And the balance range is just the total high-low of that period. So if I look at it here and kind of look at it here closely, now we've got such large days here, but if I kind of zoom in, You can see here I've got some lines here which are signify, and it's just a more dotted yellow line here right below this kind of dashed yellow point of control. That's the initial point of control within the first 2 hours of the day. And you can see that they're pretty much unchanged, which is interesting. A lot of times that's not the case. So that is the initial balance area and initial point of control and initial value area properties. Okay, so we've talked a lot about session profiles. We've talked about how you can parameterize them. Let's take a look and see how we're doing on time. Looks like we're about 40 minutes in or so. We'll go ahead and wrap up talking about volume profile here briefly. I just want to quickly talk a little bit more about this composite profile. In the composite profile, we can set various options. I talked a little bit about how the composite is on the right-hand side of the chart. You get one profile in the chart, and you can actually layer these. So don't be afraid to experiment. It's not uncommon to go ahead and throw a composite on for 1 week back, then go ahead and throw another composite on and make it 2 days back or 3 days back, and you can kind of layer these on top of each other in some interesting ways. And so if I set this to 1 week back, we already demoed that, so I'm not going to do that again. But what I do want to show you, one that works a little differently, these all have a set amount of period where it sets the start date and end time. You're kind of defining that based on these rules here, weeks back, days back, months back, or specifying an exact date or the entire chart. Or you can do visible screen range. So let me go ahead and click that one. And go ahead and click that, click OK. And this one's interesting because let's say I go ahead and zoom in here. So these are 5-minute charts here. So you can see as I zoom in, now as I scroll back and forward, that profile will actually change. So as I roll back, so I can actually really easily, let's say I wanted to X-ray in at a specific time and kind of zoom in, I can do that with the visible screen range option, which is kind of neat. So definitely a cool way to use the profile in composite. Okay. And last thing is just showing the drawing tool. We did cover a little bit of that already. One thing that I will mention is that a lot of people will dial in the way that they like their profiles done by default. When you do that and you're using the drawing tool, what I urge you to do is to double click on the drawing tool to get into these settings. You'll find all the settings here. When you get to some predefined settings that you use, make sure you come in here to template and save a template, okay? When you save a template, you're gonna wanna click save, and you wanna just keep the name default here. When you keep the name default and click save, now that template will load by default, so you don't have to come in here and load a template each time. Just every single time you draw it, it's gonna be the way you defined it. So that's definitely gonna be critical with the drawing tool. The drawing tool, the last thing that I have not talked about yet, and that is in the setup area, is going to be a resolution property here. By default, I've been using minute. You have options of minute and tick. With minute, what will happen is to build these profiles, we need access to finer granularity data, which means we need to load in either the lowest granularity minute data we can, which is 1 minute data, and use that as the basis for assigning volume per price, or we use tick. Tick being the most accurate, but also tick charts are the longest to load. So on those charts where you want the most accuracy, you're going to want to come in and set resolution to tick here. Just know that as you set resolution tick, you're going to have to load all that trade data and calculate your profile on all that trade data. And so you want to make sure you're using that in areas where it matters. Okay. All right. There's a few other properties and things which we have not talked about. To me, this is covering the majority of profile basics and getting you up to speed as to how you can use these profiles. and various ways you can combo the profiles. You can even, the last thing I'll do, which is an advanced way to use a profile, is a setting for session templates. So meaning if you want to add 2 profiles, one for the RTH session and one for the ETH session, you can do that as well. So you'll pick a session as your profile period. You'll pick trading hours. You'll come down here, I'm on the ES, so that's CME, US Index Futures, ETH or RTH. By default, all our charts are use ETH. So let's say I want to change this into an RTH profile. I just click RTH here, click OK. And now I just get a profile per the regular trading hours. And I can actually add another profile here, so I can have 2 profiles to be the RTH and the ETH session. So that's something I can do as well. And I can custom define those, if I want to define that I can create my own trading hour template by going into Tools, Trading Hours. I can customize and create my own variant, and I can do that as well. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll create a template with just the morning session, the afternoon session, and then the overnight session, and then I've got kind of 3 profiles per day. That's absolutely something you can do to set up your charts. Alrighty, so we covered a lot there. So we're getting pretty close to the end of the webinar where I'd like to wrap it up, but I'd like to spend another, want to say 5-10 minutes kind of giving you a sneak peek as to what's coming up new in the next version of NinjaTrader. We've got various exciting things we've been working on. And let me go back to the slides and come on down to refresh my memory as we go through it. So for those of you that are, have NinjaTrader users, and I'm going to run through some of the new features and functionality that's coming out that we're excited about. Like I said, this is coming out probably next week, somewhere around there. Don't quote me on the exact time. We're quality testing it right now. And the first thing we've done, and for those, I've had it up on my chart, for those of you that are astute and may have seen it, we've added real-time volume here on the right to the depth map. So you get the depth map bars, which I'll just move this to the side here. We've got that demoed here to where we've got a right margin now, where it just shows the data in bar format. That was a requested feature. We listened to feedback. We went ahead and got that in, and excited to see how that goes. So we're excited about that. I'm going to go ahead and just kind of minimize this up here a little bit because I might be switching between the two. Let me see here. I'll just maximize it so you guys can read it. We added to the volumetric bars in the product. We added a profile mode, so you now can see the volume by comparing and having a kind of a min and a max volume bar per delta in these volumetric bars. That was also a requested feature. Went ahead and added that for our next release. Next thing we've added is on the volume profile. We got some feedback from our customers that they wanted to specify the date. Let's say you're going to have a monthly or a weekly profile. You may not want that to be 1 month from the current day. You probably want that to be, let's say, monthly, being it starts on the 1st of every month. And if you'd like that, we added an option where you can set month or week to be calendar month or calendar week. So that is coming in R16. Excited to bring that. Next thing we've done is on the price profiles. We've added an O and C marker to the profiles. So the profile now will have an O, and that's hard coded. So O and C for open and close, where the profile had opened and closed. The reason why we've added that is because a lot of users of price charts will like to hide the underlying candlesticks. And when you do that, then you lose a little bit, you lose the granularity of where it exactly opened. And so we went ahead and added that to the price profiles. Moving along, we've added the depth chart, and we've added a thing called FX tile here. I want to spend a little bit of time talking about depth chart. This is commonly used for, it is limited just to crypto instruments today. You can select an instrument. So cryptocurrencies, you can select any one of these Coinbase instruments here. And it's simply an aggregated view of the entire order book as to how much is on offer on the ask side on the right and the bid side on the left. And you can hover over the points to get a tooltip as to the exact volume, the price, and if you were to submit an order and you wanted to take out all the volume of the trade, all the volume available at this price, that would be roughly about 2 billion worth of Bitcoin on bid here. So, you know, this is something where you click the plus and minus sign here. You can see I can zoom in to the price action. So if I'm zooming in, so I can look a little bit closer and I can kind of see where there's steps in the volume. So somebody at this price point had, now no longer, had there was large orders at that specific price. You know, this is showing very similar to what you're seeing here in the order flow market depth map. It's just aggregated and flipped on its axis. So this is typical to see and typical to use for crypto. So we felt we wanted to add that. We're excited to get feedback on this tool and continue to grow it with the community. So that is the depth map tool. Another feature requested is just to have the FX bid and ask quote directly on the chart on kind of a movable panel here. That's going to be an indicator that you can add in the chart in the next version of NinjaTrader. We've added some additional indicators to the product. Fibonacci and Camarillo pivots make their way into the product. A block volume indicator just showing the volume occurring for block trades. Vortex, psychological line, and choppiness index are all being added. We added templates for indicators. So before, you could just set a preset on a template, or I apologize, a preset on an indicator. You could not set a template. So now we've enabled the ability to template your indicator so you can have multiple settings for multiple use cases on your indicators. And we even included a new reset button. So if you wanted to go back to defaults, you could do so. So we've added that functionality in the new version. Some of you might be happy about that. I'm also going to announce an Interactive Brokers API update. This is going to be opt-in. It's going to be this enable beta functionality checkbox, which as soon as you install the next version of NinjaTrader coming out soon, for those of you that use Interactive Brokers, checkbox that. You're going to get unfiltered real-time data, support for linked accounts, some improvements in level 2 data handling, and just in general, even without including that beta functionality, we're going to now support the latest TWS version. All right, and finally, we've added an option in the visual settings for a volume indicator. So let me go ahead and just pull that across here and actually demo both these here. I don't need the slide for this. But let's say I right-click on this chart, go to Indicators, add a volume indicator. What's new is if I expand the volume plot here, I've got an option here for match data series width. So if I checkbox that, I no longer can set the width. And if I click OK, now as I increase and decrease the width of the chart, the width automatically increases and decreases just to match the candlestick chart style. So just kind of a nice kind of quality improvement. And last but not least, as far as announcements, for those of you that may have seen it on my chart trader, on my order entry chart here, we've done a couple of things. We've made the chart trader size customizable. This has been something our users have been requesting for some time. And so now if I hover over here, I can actually change the width of the chart trader panel, either smaller or lower, or smaller or larger in size. This way you can get the panel a little smaller if that's your preference. And here I've got the order quantity field. We've added this icon here in the quantity box. And as I click in the quantity box, I now get the quantity pad. Now this has always been in the product. It's been accessible by middle clicking on the quantity field, where you'll get a pad here, which just gives you hotkeys to action. So on the left-hand side, let's say I want to set my order quantity to 10. Just click it, I get order quantity 10. If I want to add 1 to that, I just click that. I now get +1, +2, etc. So we've got a calculator side and a hotkey side, which are all configurable by this button here. And that just gives you an easy way to expose, having a hotkey to set quantity quickly. We wanted to expose that and make it a little easier to access, so we've added an icon in the quantity control. All right. Let me move back my PowerPoint here. Oh, and I missed one little thing here, a minor thing. It's common action for those of you that might have the global simulate sim mode on. So by default, when you start the product, just to make it explicit, when you want to select your live account, you want to turn off global sim mode. Kind of a smart thing to do. To do that, if you forgot to do that before you select the live account, you just got a warning that said you need to go turn it off, and then you had to go to the control center and turn it off. Now we just let you turn it off right there in the UI. So you'll be able to just click yes right as you select the live account and just go right in the live account. This is just a quality of life improvement to the product, which should make working with the product on a daily basis a little more enjoyable. Okay, so that is it of the kind of pre-curated content. I will be around to answer any kind of remaining questions we have. Terry, if you're available to kind of look through those questions and see what have been asked, if there are any questions, then I'll be happy to answer them. And for those of you that are heading out, thanks again for joining us in today's webinar. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to contact us on our platform support at NinjaTrader.com. We also have our great website, NinjaTrader.com. And any questions, Terry?
Okay. Can you select a specific area on the chart for a one-off profile?
Yes, so that's the drawing tool profile. So let me get rid of these profiles here. So here on this guy, I'm going to go ahead and select these profiles. I'm left clicking on them to select them, deleting them out. If I want a one-off profile, use the Order Flow Volume Profile drawing tool here from the menu. Click where you'd like it, start, drag, it just kind of auto fits to the data. Click again, one-off profile.
Can I plot the naked POC in value high and low?
So yes, maybe that question was asked before I covered it, but that absolutely is configurable, and I believe that's this chart right here. So here is a naked point of control. I've just double-click on the profile down here. Got extended naked point of control, extended naked value area. I just need to simply expand that, set it to visible, then it's on.
Okay. How do I get the candlesticks to show on top of the profile? My candles are behind the profile.
Either two ways to do that. You can either click on the profile to select it, then you're going to hold down, give me a sec. You're going to hold down Shift, and as I do that, you'll see it says level 1 of 2. As I scroll up and down, so I scrolled up to get to level 2 of 2, now the candlesticks will be on top of the profile. So I can either push the candlesticks up or push the profile down.
Okay. Is there a future feature you... Let me see if I can read this. Is there a future feature you can create multiple composite volume profiles, same as Sierra charts?
Well, you can add multiple composite profiles on the chart, no problem. They're all plotted either on the left or the right. You can have one on the left, one on the right, or you can have multiples on the right or multiples on the left. Now, it doesn't make sense to have multiples on the right with the same settings, so you'll probably want to use different settings, vary them up with different colors. For example, use have two standard, one with blue and one with green. They all got opacity, so you're going to be able to see through them, and you can do it that way. As far as the last part of that question, how Sierra charts do it, I'm not familiar with Sierra charts. If the current feature set and what I explained is not doing what you would like or what you're needing, I'd be interested to hear about the use case. Please contact me at platformsupport@ninjatrader.com, and put attention Brett in the subject line, since that'll get right to me and I can get that a little more clarity on that.
Okay. What is the load on the PC resources with the multiple composites?
I mean, I've got a ton of composites here. I'll drag this down. I'm going to say minimal. I've got 338 megabytes used here in 2.4. I mean, market's closed, so I'm not showing the, I think market's closed. It's either closed or low volume right now, but very minimal. So you're able to use this without. Now, granted, the amount of RAM usage is relative to how much data. So if I was to load more data, of course it's going to use more RAM. If I am to use tick mode over minute mode, then I also use more RAM. You know, you're able to get in there and experiment and play. I wouldn't caution you against it, but there definitely is a point where if you have too many with tick, you know, you're going to be pushing any system. So that's just something you got to play around with. But you can kind of see as I demoed the product, you know, it's still responsive. I've got lots of profiles, you know, with no problem.
Okay. What is the current version that you're showing on your screen of NinjaTrader?
So this is version, we call it R16. It's really 8.0.16.0.
Okay.
We're testing this internally right now for a release potentially next week.
Okay. On the weeks back, does it calculate from today back or from Sunday to Sunday?
You've got two options. You have both options, I should say. And you don't have both options right now. This is one of the new things we're adding in the release 16. And so if I come down here to profile period, in the current version of NinjaTrader, you've got session, bars, and composite, where if you were to select composite and you select weeks back, that's going to be weeks back from the current day. If you go to weeks here, then this will give you a profile starting on a calendar every single week. So you can do both.
Okay. Is there any chance of making the order flow capability is available on the free version?
Right now, we're offering it on the lifetime version right now. Don't know of any plans to change that at this time. Lifetime is definitely, it's an affordable option to get NinjaTrader for life. As far as I know, it is the most cost-effective way to own NinjaTrader. So for now, lifetime is how you get the Order Flow Plus package.
Okay. Does this order flow volume profile require show tick replay from the options market data section?
No, it does not. We add a one tick series under the hood, no tick replay needed. So this that was one of the development requirements when we started to work on this, is that, you know, the tick replay is definitely a helpful feature when you want an entire chart to be built from the ground up using tick data like it was built live, which is useful for indicators that might run differently on real-time data versus historical data. For this, since a lot of providers, including our own historical data servers, Kinetic, a few others I can't remember off the top of my head, on a one-tick data, which you can just download off their historical data servers when you're just downloading tick data, it comes stamped with the ask bid already. That it was, and that's was the current ask and bid price at the time the trade occurred. And so we can access that and just use that to calculate the whenever we're calculating whether or not a trade occurred on the bid or the ask. So a long way of saying no, tick replay is not required for Order Flow Plus.
Okay. Let's see. On the chart trader, is there a better way to pyramid orders with an ATM? I create an order with an ATM with a stop loss of 10 ticks. Then I add another order to the chart. If I add more orders, the stop losses are all over the place as the entry prices are different. Is there a better way to group the stop losses than selecting and placing them all in one group?
So as far as that question, I didn't follow exactly the scenario where this person ran into trouble, but
I think he has an ATM where he has like a 10 tick stop and he'll place multiple orders. And so when he places each order, the stop loss will be naturally at different levels. And so he'll have to like drag and drop them to group them.
I see. So what I would advise there is, I mean, that gets into, there's like about 5 different ways to skin the cat with ATM strategies. You know, you can use different ATM strategy selection modes. There's scale in modes, and there's also the ability to scale into an existing strategy. So that's done by, let's say you have a custom template with a 10 stop loss. Click OK. I'll save this as ATM1. Click OK. So now I've got an ATM with a stop strategy here. And so if I place an order here, so let's go ahead and place an order. And let's do not 13, let's just do 1.
Order pending.
So I've got a pending order here. So now if I was to submit other orders before this fills and this ATM strategy is still selected, if those orders fill, they're going to fill at the same stop price as defined, so 10 ticks back. Now, if I select a new ATM strategy, that's going to base me at a new area. So I can have an ATM here, select the new template, so hit sell limit again. I'll disable order contract here. So now I've got 2 orders, one with 13 and one with 1 here, and I've got 2 ATMs running. Now, when this order fills, it's going to be 10 ticks behind this order's entry price, and then when this order fills, it's going to be 10 ticks behind this entry price. And there's scale in mechanics as well. So I don't know if this person's talking about just entry orders or let's say they're already in an ATM strategy, but regardless, we do have a webinar on ATM strategies. It is available if you go to the NinjaTrader, NinjaTrader.com. We have a webinar with a bunch of ATM resources that we cover. You can just watch an easy, convenient YouTube video on it. If that doesn't get the question answered and kind of get you familiar with the ATM process, then just write into platformsupport@ninjatrader.com and request a quick phone call. So that way we can do a quick remote session and just get your question answered directly if the documentation does not answer what you're looking for there.
Okay. Let's see. We're getting really close. Or actually, we're over time. Let me see if I can find one to. Okay, I have a paid license, but do not see order flow profile. Please advise.
If you've got a lifetime license, that's required to right-click and go to indicators, and you'll see the order flow volume profile, and you'll be able to add it to a chart. If you don't see these options at all in the indicator dialog, to me that indicates that you've got an older version of NinjaTrader. If you've got an older version of NinjaTrader, since we've recently introduced these, then we just simply need to get you upgraded. And if you are on the latest version of NinjaTrader, you've just done a reinstall and everything's fresh, but you're still having trouble finding those, then that's what our platform support team's for. We'll contact out to you and see what's going on there.
Okay. Thank you for the webinar today, for the information, and for spending some time with us this evening.
Hey, no problem, Terry. Always a pleasure coming into the Futures IO webinar room. And wish you guys the rest of good trading. And let's hit. So for some traders, the VIX being up high and getting up high is great. Others want it low. So let's hope for some good sailings ahead here.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
All right, guys.